of Statistics, there are about 131 detailed religious groups in Australia. 43%, almost 44%, they, I could say, identify themselves as a Christians. But there are Christians like Ahimaaz, and there are Christians like Cushite. They are running, but they don't know why. If you ask them, why do you go to the church? Well, I don't know. And a lot of times, it has to do with one of these reasons. Quality of sermons. Over 80% of churchgoers say that the Bible teaching and practical scriptural messages are a major factor in choosing a congregation. Another reason, welcoming leadership. Warm engagement from pastors and church staff helps newcomers feel valued immediately. There's another group of people that choose the worship style. The type of music, liturgy, or traditional versus contemporary feel strongly guides preference. Family and programs. People choose because, oh, it's good for my kids. Strong children's ministries, youth groups, and the presence of friends or relatives draw families to specific locations. And the last part is convenience. Practical factors like geographical proximity and location play a large role in regular attendance. So the question is, why do I come to church? Do I come because it's close? Do I come to church because it's convenient? Do I come to church because they make me feel good here? Or do I come to church because I know they have a message and I know that I will be properly and spiritually fed here? So again, going back to Ahimaaz, in 2 Samuel chapter 18, then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, let me now run and bear the king's tidings. How that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies, and Joab said unto him, thou shalt not bear things this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. But this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. So, what was about Ahimaaz that was so different? At the very beginning of this story, he was the one that went to Joab. He wanted to bring the message. He was very eager because he wanted to do it right now. But he never got the commission to do it because Joab told him 2 times, like, look, there's no point of you going there because somebody else is going to be a messenger. And he never knew exactly as to what's happening because he was never a witness to what was happening. So he was the one that initiated. And it was a man-made endeavor. And as we go on, when he came again, asking Joab to run, Joab said, look, if you want to, go for it. But there's no purpose. There's no point of you doing that. He was very zealous. From the human perspective, he was doing far better than the Cushite because he was ready to go. He wanted to go. He outran the Cushite. He was there before the king first, and he supposedly had a message. But that message was incomplete. It did not have the purpose. So today, many churches are like Ahimaaz. They might have better music. They might have more subscriptions on YouTube channels. They might have bigger choir. They might have more programs for children, or whatever it may be. And they're packed. I'm not sure about, I would imagine it's the same thing here in Australia, but in US we call them mega churches, where you have thousands and thousands of people that come and the parking lots are full, the churches are full, but it becomes more of a social gathering rather than a church experience, rather than a spiritual experience. Apparent success and apparent blessing from God. But the Bible tells us that they don't have authority from God. Because when we look at Psalms chapter 127, verse 1, it says, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. So Ahimaaz and Cushite, they were the messengers. They were bringing the message. But yet one of them had no business in bringing the message because he wasn't authorized to do that. And then in 2 Samuel 18:21, Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, all is well. He fell down to the earth upon his face before the king. It was a partially true message because all was well. The rebellion was crushed. The enemies were destroyed. But yet again, it was not a complete message. So when Ahimaaz arrived, the first thing he said, all is well. And generally, that's the message that's being preached today as well. When we go to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3, for a time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound and wholesome teaching. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. This is a common English version translation, which gives a bit of a better understanding, I would say, to the verse. So we live in the world today where people don't necessarily want to hear as to what is the truth. They don't want to hear that this is right and this is wrong. People prefer today to go to a gray territory where things are not so dry and clear what is right and what is wrong. The truth becomes relative and is no longer the truth. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, it says, while people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destructions will come upon them. All is well was the first message of Ahimaaz, where in reality all was not necessarily well. When they stood before David, up to this point, they both ran. There was no apparent difference to David. David couldn't differentiate why there's two of them and what are they bringing. Their mission was equal up to a certain point. But when they both arrived and when they both started talking, there was a certain question that was asked by David, and it revealed the nature of the truth, you could say. So the king asked a crucial question, what happened to Absalom? Ahimaaz knew the answer, right? He could have said, look, I wasn't there, but I know Joab said that he is dead. But he fumbled and said, the tumult, I'm not sure. So they was like, okay, step aside. I need someone that knows what they're talking about. So that's when the Cushite came, and Cushite said, he is dead. In not so many words, but that was the gist of it. So this is where the difference became apparent. So the question is, why am I going to this church? Why am I running as a Christian in the Christian race? What are we pursuing? What are we trying to achieve? Are we coming for comfort, or are we coming for the truth that is presented to us through the Bible? The Bible goes on, the Christ Object Lesson says that the great and final test comes as at the close of the human probation, when it will be too late for the soul's need to be supplied. Today is the time when we are learning the message. Today is the time when we can still learn the message, then we can still go and be the messengers. Because when the time of trouble comes and there will be no support from our peers, that's when it will be evident as to why have we chose what we chose to do. There will be people that will choose ease and comfort. They will deny their faith because they simply cannot withstand the trial. And as the paragraph says, that when the test comes, it'll be too late to make a decision. It'll be too late because it will be simply impossible to make the right choice, because you don't know what is the right choice anymore. The truth has been slowly degraded in your mind. So what is the message that we're preaching today? Well, Revelation chapter 14, saying with a loud voice, fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. This is not the entire message. This is just the first angel's message, but we're preaching today the three angels' messages. It is not a pretty message. Just like Cushite's message, it was not a pretty message, but it's a solemn message, and it's a message that is beautiful in itself because it not only condemns, but it also gives hope, because God does not want us to perish, but He wants us to have everlasting life. And the choice that we need to be making, it has to be today. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, it says that study and do your best to present yourself to God approved, a workman tested by trial who has no reason to be ashamed, accurately handling and skillfully teaching the word of truth. Again, this is Amplified Bible translation. So, in order for us to have the message, in order for us to share the light, we need to have the light. As simple as that. And in order to spread the message, we need to study the message. So if somebody comes to you today and says and asks you a question, why do you believe what you believe? Are you going to be comfortable in answering? Or are you going to be fumbling and scrambling to find an adequate answer? That's more of a rhetorical question that we need to ask ourselves. So when we go to church, we need to remember that we are a Cushite Christians. This world is, God called us out of this world. He set us apart because we have a message. And He doesn't want us to run anywhere without that message. In Romans chapter 10, verses 14 and 15, it says, "But how are men to call upon Him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in Him whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without a preacher? And how can a man preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach good news." So, in order for us to be a Cushite messengers today, we need to study and we need to know, so that when we are called, we know whom we believe. So when we are asked to preach, we know what we're preaching about. In Review and Herald, it says the following: "As the purchase of the blood of Christ, as His representatives on the earth, we sustain important relation both to the church and to the world. We are commissioned to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. We are under obligation to do all in our power to save souls for whom Christ has died. Christ has made an infinite sacrifice in our behalf, and we should show that we appreciate the sacrifice by doing all in our power to forward the work of salvation." My dear friends, the price has been, an ultimate price has been paid for our salvation. And that message has been given to us, not so that we hoard it, but that message has been given to us so that we can share it with others. And it's not a message of just dry theory, but the message that we need to share is the message that we witnessed, the message that we lived through this, and we share just simply what has happened to us. In the conclusion, I'd like to share another interesting story. On December 26th of 2004, a 10-year-old Tilly Smith was enjoying a family holiday at Mai Khao Beach in Phuket, Thailand. Only a few weeks earlier, Tilly's geography teacher had taught her class about tsunamis. He explained that before a tsunami arrives, the sea may behave strangely, receding unusually far, bubbling and producing foam. While walking along the beach, Tilly noticed those same warning signs. The water was behaving strangely and appeared to be sizzling. She immediately told her mother, "Mommy, there's going to be a tsunami." At first, her parents found it difficult to believe her. There was no enormous waves visible on the horizon, and other tourists were continuing to enjoy the beach. But Tilly persisted. "I am going. I am definitely going. There is definitely going to be a tsunami." The urgency in her voice convinced her father, And he warned the hotel staff, and the people were instructed to leave the beach and move to safety. Minutes later, the Indian Ocean tsunami reached the coastline. Macau became one of the few beaches in the affected area where there were no deaths that were reported. UNESCO credits Tilly's warning with helping to clear the beach and save the people that were gathered there. Tilly had a message. She was not afraid, and she was not ashamed of sharing that message, because she knew what she learned and she put that into practice, and by that she was able to save a lot of people that were on that beach. My dear friends, are we acting today as Ahimaaz? Are we sugarcoating the message? Or are we acting today as Cushite? Straightforward testimony. Because the commission is given to us. He said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to the whole creation. You and I are living epistles read by others. What kind of epistle are we? Are we happy to just pot along, make sure that we're not bothered, and make sure we're not bothering others? Or are we going to stir, first of all, ourselves and stir others and bring them closer to Christ, because we have a light shining in our heart? So my wish and prayer is that we make the choice today to decide what kind of messengers are we, because the message is clear, the message is straight, but the decision is ours. Amen.